Doctor Who, The Dalek Factory by M.R. Mills. For Tristan Mills. Love you always, from Daddy Matt. Hugs and kisses. The TARDIS purred with anticipation. Lights bloomed from its column, bouncing off the multicoloured panels across the floor. The Doctor, as spry in this body as his many others, danced across the room. His long, light blue coat flew around the console while the Doctor pushed buttons, pulled levers, and took the occasional carrot piece from a bowl. He bobbed his head to the deep techno music building up. The Doctor turned it off before taking a deep breath, taking in the sweet scent of the console room. "I don't remember having strawberries," said the Doctor to himself. He smiled at the pulsating column. "Did you do this?" The TARDIS clanged. "Such a darling." Beneath the joyful clatter of his ship's inner workings, a phone began to ring. The Doctor stood still. Its ring bounded from the sofa to the cat tree, Boots not being too impressed as he lay at the top with his black and white tuxedo fur. The Doctor's eyes scanned the console until it came across a flashing light. "Who's calling us, old girl?" "Only one way to find out." He quickly pushed the light. A monitor shut out in front of him, the image of an older gentleman fading in as they spoke.
"Doctor?"
asked a raspy voice.
"Doctor, are you there?"
A smaller black cat, Luna, jumped up to the side of the monitor, curious at the new, rough-faced man coming into view.
"Doctor, if you are there, I need to speak to you urgently."
"Nathan Rogers!" cheered the Doctor. "It's been a long time. How have you been?"
"Ah, excellent. I've been better, I can tell you that."
Nathan cleared his throat.
"We have a situation here at the Foundation. I feel that we need..."
As the picture became clear, Nathan squinted his eyes, examining the Doctor's youthful features and his razor-short brown hair. The Doctor stood there, beaming, twirling a small tail of hair at the back of his head. Nathan paused.
"Have you regenerated?"
The Doctor giggled. "I was wondering when you'd notice. What do you think?"
"Did you want to keep the monocle?"
"I didn't think it suited this face. What about you? The beard is new?" Nathan shrugged.
"I suppose. I haven't really been keeping track of it."
His eyes widened with realization before he tried to peer behind the Doctor.
"Travelling alone?"
"I have cats," the Time Lord pointed out. "They stay put and are so adorable." Nathan raised an eyebrow. The Doctor knew that face. Many people had given him that look before. It usually meant he was in trouble. He thought back to those who had left his TARDIS in faces past. The young, the old, the human, the alien, and of course, the time he travelled with Winnie the Pooh. With a deep sigh, the Doctor gave Nathan a sad smile. "It's all right, Nathan. I'm never by myself for long. Who knows? Maybe I'll find a companion at the Foundation."
"Not if the Dalek gets to them first."
The Doctor shot to attention. "Pardon?" Nathan scratched his beard.
"That's why I called you. The Foundation recently managed to acquire a live Dalek."
"Why?" he grumbled.
"Your guess is as good as mine. I need you to get here as soon as possible."
The Doctor burst into life, fingers darting from switch to lock on to Nathan's signal. Dalek. The word pulsated in his mind, over and over, their burning metal voices screeching in his memory, a single rotating eye peering over the Doctor's shoulder. He quickened his pace. "Nathan, how long has the Dalek been there?" the Doctor managed to get out in between hurried breaths.
"It just arrived. They've called it Delta and surrounded the base with added security specially made for it."
"They did that quickly?" A roar burst through the sound system, jostling the screen while knocking the Doctor off his feet. He pulled himself back up by the console. Nathan Rogers cringed, the beast's cry fading back from where it came. What was that?
That would be the security system. They'd been searching for specimens for quite a while. You can't imagine how annoyingly happy the head of security is that they get to use it now.
The Doctor paused. He licked his lips and nodded. Well, I'm sure Godzilla is the most unique security measure for a Dalek.
Funnily enough, that's what they call it.
The Doctor held his hands in front of him. Nathan, stay right there. You'll have some interference as I set the TARDIS, but I will be right back.
Do you want me to...
A rush of static cut Nathan off as the TARDIS wheezed into motion. The Doctor scrambled back into life, Boots and Luna jumping off the cat tree to join him, curiosity at their owner's speed taking over the allure of the cushions. He made sure to press the button for treats to reward the cats. They spilled onto the floor from the console just as the TARDIS ground to a halt. The Doctor straightened his coat before speeding down the staircase to the front door. He turned back to the monitor. Nathan, I'm back. Are you still there? Silence. Nathan William Rogers, can you hear me? The monitor on the console remained silent, its black screen reflecting the Doctor's bright green eyes. He looked up into the roof of the TARDIS. A web of lights, Christmas and birthday-like, hung around the glowing cylinder in the centre of the room. Be back in a bit, dear. The TARDIS pinged in response. I'll be fine, don't you worry. The Doctor gave her his best grin. I'll be back in time for a cup of tea. Nathan will be back soon as well. We can have a good old catch-up. I'm sure he'll love to see your new look. The Doctor stepped out onto a hard floor, rough with the ever-marching string of boots that walked its corridors. Echoes met at the intersections. A scent of grit laced each breath the Doctor took in. The Foundation, military for those that thought the army was far too passé. The doors rumbled at a touch, unheard sound bombarding the other side, each one no doubt housing something the Doctor wished he could remain ignorant to. In the distance, buried under the deafening silence, Nathan's gruff voice waited for him. The Doctor sped off down a hallway. The walls funneled out, making the corridor wider the longer he went out to give way to the pristine black cameras to follow the Doctor's path. A group of soldiers watched him go, admiring his speed from the window of the break room. The Doctor waved quickly before spotting a familiar form shouting at an amused tall man in a dull suit.
Look, for the last time, I need to get into that room,
Nathan declared.
That Dalek is a menace, and I need to know how equipped the thing is.
And for the last time, countered the guard, we have more security measures than you've had hot dinners. Delta is little more than a very large tin can at this point. You have nothing to fear, Mr. Rogers.
Dr. Rogers.
Nathan corrected.
Have you ever faced a Dalek before?
Can't say I have.
Please let a man who's fought more Daleks than you've had restful nights be the judge of that.
The Doctor skipped to the side. As the two continued to talk, he rocked back and forth on his heels, letting the squeak permeate Nathan's rage. He'd done that long before the man's hair turned grey. The echo of those memories brought a light to the room, despite the mention of a Dalek burning a metallic scream into the Doctor's ears. We've got Grimlock coming in from Cybertron to help out, said the guard.
Against a Dalek?
Nathan's eyes widened with astonishment.
Look, I like the Dinobot as much as the next person. Great for a day out. But he shouldn't have to deal with a Dalek.
I'd argue he...
What does Optimus think of the idea?
The guard faltered. For the first time, he seemed to notice the Doctor. He rested a hand on the Time Lord's shoulder, stopping him rocking while keeping his own arm steady. The guard's face contorted into different expressions while a dozen sentences fell off his lips before they could start. Nathan clicked his tongue.
Optimus does know that you have a Dalek, right?
Swiftly, the guard's arm swung behind his back. He nodded to the two of them before marching down the corridor, arms holding strong. As he turned the corner, the moment his eyes lost sight of them, he dashed out the way, arms dropping to his side. The Doctor leaned into Nathan just before silence had a chance to set in. When did you become a doctor? Nathan shrugged.
I didn't. I just find people give more answers when a doctor is in the room.
I'm flattered. The Doctor's smile soured. He plucked his sonic screwdriver from his pocket, clutching the narrow steel rod tightly as he scanned the door Nathan scowled at. Battered and worn, practically alien in a base on the height of wall, the entrance to the resident Dalek bore a cold energy the Doctor had seen so many times, yet it never failed to grab his heart in an iron grip. His sonic tweeted like a bird, delighted to greet him each time he stepped into the garden. He stared into the purple light twinkling at the end, reading the small writing whirling around the end. The Doctor sighed. A low energy reading. Are you sure the Dalek is in there? Nathan began to rub his chest. Beneath the shirt sat a scar. The Doctor knew it well. He shied away as Nathan Rogers' hand shook, tracing the scar's outline. Are you all right? The Doctor outstretched his arms. Need a hug? Nathan shook his head, taking deep, shuddering breaths.
I should be fine.
We are going to get rid of the Dalek. It will not spend a minute more in this place. Nathan's fear fell away to mild annoyance.
Doctor, it's been here for over a month.
What?
I called you a month ago. What kept you?
Oh dear, Nathan grumbled.
Do you think the Dalek has anything to do with it?
The Doctor scratched his chin. I hope not. We better go check. They darted back down the hall, but the door's presence never left the Doctor's mind. This incarnation had never seen the Daleks. Anticipation for his new eyes to gaze upon the disgusting sheen of their armour plagued his mind right up until the moment they arrived at the blank spot the TARDIS once stood.
A good idea, Doctor.
Nathan praised.
Making it invisible was a brilliant idea.
I didn't make it invisible.
Oh?
It was parked here. Nathan knelt down, the Doctor following suit. Faint scrape marks littered the tiles before ending in a streak of tyre tracks. The Doctor strode down the lines, his ears twitched, trying desperately to hear the pings of his TARDIS. Time Lord hearing does come in handy. The flutter of his long coat filled the corridor. He had no time to stop for guards, though did meet their interrogating gazes with a quick wave. The tracks led to an iron door. A sharp, windy whistle crept around its hinges.
Doctor, don't!
Nathan cried out, but the Doctor pushed open the door, revealing the bright image of his TARDIS sat in the sight of a gigantic dinosaur-like creature. It bared its teeth as large as the ship itself. Sleek spikes ran down its back to the tip of its tail. Hot breath washed over the Doctor from a bulky T-Rex head. He closed the door slowly. I take it that's Godzilla. Nathan nodded.
Yep. Finest bioweapon the Foundation has ever made. It's trained not to attack the staff, so I'd better get the TARDIS later for you.
Thanks. A deafening cry from behind the metal door caused the Doctor and Nathan to cover their ears. They bent over in pain. The Doctor's hand shot back to his coat pocket, fumbling under Godzilla's roar to grip his screwdriver. In time, the roar came to a halt. A new cry took its place. An angry call came right before the sound of gunfire hurtling into thick walls. The Doctor quickly followed the echoing, taking the bombardment of noise in full force. Nathan joined him, stopping the Time Lord before he could pass around the corner. A bullet ricocheted off the walls, inches from the Doctor's head.
You'd better let me go there first.
Nathan pulled a long hilt from his belt. As he flipped the switch, a blue laser erupted from it, giving a satisfying hum. The Doctor raised an eyebrow. Nathan grinned widely, swinging round the corner. His sabre fizzled with the bullets it blocked.
Stand down!
Nathan ordered. The guard from earlier shook with anger, gritting his teeth at Nathan's blade. His once dull suit was now tattered with the marks of his brawl, other guards groaning on the floor. The Doctor scanned him with his sonic. Human. His eyes glinted with something much more dangerous. Exterminate! The guard called out, his voice gruff with anger. He swung his fist for Nathan. The glow of his lightsaber reflected in the guard's eyes, a flame fueling his attack. Again and again he tried to punch Nathan, kept at bay by his saber. The buzz of the Doctor's sonic caught the guard's attention. His glare pierced through the Time Lord. Nathan quickly stepped in front of the Doctor, the results of the scan pulsating on the tip of the screwdriver. Human biology, the Doctor began, but there's something in his system. Exterminate, the guard growled. He moved this way and that, desperately trying to get beyond the lightsaber. Nathan prodded it forward, causing the guard to leap back.
I think we know who's responsible.
Unfortunately, the doctor sighed deeply. Just as a frown crept its way onto his youthful face, the sonic pinged. With a childish smile, the doctor pointed a screwdriver at the guard and activated it. The guard shuddered under the sound of a high-pitched hum. His anger faded, pain taking over, causing him to drop to his knees. Silence. The doctor stopped the sonic and waited. Nathan turned his lightsaber off, swiftly placing it back on his belt as the guard rose, free of anger or confidence. He stood on shaky legs with a glimmer in his eyes, more suited to a scared child than a military guard. "What was that?" he asked the pair with a quivering voice. The doctor plucked a jelly baby from a pack in his pocket. "Eat up."
Will he be okay?
asked Nathan. The guard looked up with pleading eyes. When the doctor nodded, the guard skulked off down the corridor, muttering about the things he could do with free time. Nathan stepped forward, but a gentle hand on his shoulder halted his pursuit of the guard. "We need to see Delta as soon as possible," the doctor warned. A clatter of footsteps interrupted the conversation. Guns clicked in chorus, a squad of rifles staring down the pair, faces hidden behind helmets with only the reflection in the visors providing a face for the doctor to look at. His own. Another group came up behind the doctor, demanding answers to the bodies stirring on the floor. Nathan chuckled.
Just like old times.
Part 2. A tall woman paced behind a desk on spindly legs that brought pride to the spiders watching from the windowsill. Her pale grey suit moved in perfect sync with footsteps. She wore her blonde hair up in a neat bun, which bobbed up and down with each step on her high-heel shoes. Her silvery voice felt strange to be used to tell the doctor off. He couldn't complain.
"Officer Jenkins is on his way home now,"
Miss Wormwood explained.
"He says he feels like he's been hit... He says he feels like he's been hit by a bus on fire. Would you two care to explain why he does and why 5 other guards are currently in the medical bay?"
Nathan took a deep breath.
Well, Miss Wormwood.
"Yes, Dr. Rogers."
He paused.
I can explain that another time. We have reason to believe that Dalek Delta has somehow infected Jenkins.
"Really?"
Of course, the doctor chimed in. Exhibit A. Jenkins shouted exterminate while attacking us. That's really the only evidence I actually need.
He also
Continued Nathan, giving the doctor a disapproving look.
was charged with guarding Delta's confinement, connecting more with the Dalek. If it wasn't for my lightsaber, I don't think we would have come out of that fight unscathed.
As she passed her desk, Miss Wormwood tapped the top.
"That reminds me. We will be needing the prototype back, please. You cannot lie about being a doctor and get to keep it. Is your friend an actual doctor?"
I am the doctor, the Time Lord said with pride. The genuine article, you might say. Wormwood stopped pacing.
"What are you a doctor of?"
All sorts, really. Chemicals, body parts, cheese, the list goes on. I've had a lot of time to take classes. The guard behind the doctor prodded him with their rifle, murmuring about how much of a clown he acted for being the doctor. He grinned sadly. How many faces would agree? About as many as those who disagreed on the subject. At times he heard them in his mind, pushing him one way or another. One day he'd live on just like them, sitting in the back of a mental pub, watching the show.
"Doctor, this is a serious situation. I would prefer it if you would treat it as such."
It is a serious situation, the doctor agreed. That is precisely why I don't treat it as such. To do so would let the Dalek win. To do so would give it power. To let it be serious would be me giving up, and that's not my style. Wormwood sighed.
"I want you two to speak to the head of security. By the sounds of it, you'll get on well."
Nathan scowled.
Get on better than with the Power Rangers here.
To be fair, noted one of the rangers, you did breach security by calling out to the doctor without getting permission and lied about being a doctor yourself, so you have violated a few rules.
Fair enough.
Nathan conceded.
Can you fire me after we deal with Delta?
Miss Wormwood eased down onto her seat.
We can worry about your job after the investigation. Doctor, you have more experience with Daleks than anyone on this base. I'll trust you to lead this operation.
With a twirl of his hand, the doctor saluted. You can count on Nathan and I. He clapped his hands together and turned to one of the rangers. Can you take me to the head of security? She looked to Miss Wormwood first, who nodded. Right this way. Tucked in the corner of the Foundation's base, adorned with I Love New York stickers in stark contrast to the professional uniform feel of the rest of the building, was the office. As the doctor knocked, a small slat slid open.
Spider Pizza, what will you have?
Nathan peered over his shoulder, irritated.
Knock it off, Parker. We need to speak with you.
No, if you're offering, said the doctor. A decent pepperoni is quite hard to come by. The door swung open to reveal a man in a red and blue outfit, with black lines covering it all apart from the large, expressive eyes of the mask.
See? This guy gets it.
He put his hand out.
Who are you?
I'm the doctor, Mr.
Parker. But most people call me Spider-Man.
The doctor clapped his hands together and wandered into the office. No, that was the wrong word for it. A workbench sat neatly in between an arcade machine of such loud colours it was a wonder Parker could focus, and a humming computer monitor. Spider-Man kicked the chair on squeaking wheels across the floor until it pressed a large button on the wall. Sections of it shaped like pizza slices shone in sequence. Cracks across the base blocking out the light makes the cheese which adorned the button's top. As the sequence of flashing lights became faster, a beam of energy shot down from the ceiling and onto the centre of the workbench. In a flash, a large succulent pizza allured the trio in with its sweet aroma.
Pizza button?
Explained Spider-Man.
Just a treat for something like this.
He quickly grabbed a slice and sat down.
So, Wormwood told me about an investigation.
His tone grew serious.
Tell me about the Dalek.
Nathan turned down an offered slice. The doctor watched as he, showing his age in the grimness of his voice, his wrinkles becoming more pronounced, told Parker about the Dalek. With each word, the images grew stronger in his mind, the rotating eye stalk staring at him, causing the doctor to wince. He grabbed a slice of pizza and munched on it quietly, while Nathan told Spider-Man about the screaming voice trapped inside alien tanks. Parker listened. Throughout the stories of pain, sorrow and fear, he listened, taking it all in, occasionally lifting up his mouth to eat his slices. They'd finished his pizza by the time Nathan finished. Spider-Man stood up.
Sounds like one angry pepper pot. How about we give him a shake and get some answers? Finally, someone who makes sense.
Jeered Nathan. The doctor cooed, regaining the moment. First things first, we should get back to my TARDIS. I'll have some equipment we can use to look at the readings I got from the guard.
A Time Lord lab?
Mused Spider-Man.
Now this I have to see.
An alarm mounted high on the wall bathed the room in a bright red glow. Hidden speakers came to life with a crackle. Attention, it called out. This is an emergency evacuation of Foundation Base Alpha. With all known security staff, please exit the building via the appropriate exit. Thank you. As one, the three of them rushed out the room. They followed the sound of fighting down the corridor. Spider-Man bounded off the walls to try and increase his speed. Lasers lit up at the end of the hall, muffled behind a grand door. Are you two ready? Asked the doctor.
Oh, do you deal with lasers often as well?
Spider-Man jumped off the wall. Nathan nodded.
Yep. This is basically a Tuesday for us. Really? I find it's more of a Wednesday.
Rogers turned to the doctor.
Please tell me we have a plan.
Cries of exterminate seeped through the door hinges, sending a shard of ice through the atmosphere. In moments, the hallway rumbled with the clatter of rifles. The doctor pushed open the door, revealing the rainbow of rangers pointing their guns at people trying to escape. They turned back at the door, slamming. How much damage can those rifles do? The doctor asked as he ducked round the corner of the door.
They can stun us.
Nathan replied, rolling to his side.
I'd rather we didn't get knocked out. Oh, non-lethal lasers!
Spider-Man leapt onto the ceiling to avoid a shot from one of the rangers, their whole group moving forward.
I guess we can have some luck today.
Identify yourselves, the Power Rangers cried out at once.
Doctor, think you can work that sonic again?
Nathan died out of cover.
Come on, then!
Do not move! They screamed. Spider-Man swung down, standing upside down on the ceiling, and fired his web shooters at the rifles. With a splat, they blocked the barrels. As one, the Power Rangers tossed aside their rifles, drawing radiant daggers from their belts. They moved forward in an arrow formation. The leader's visor lifted. Her eyes burnt the same as Jenkins.
Now, Doctor!
Yelled Nathan. Just before the leader could reach the doorway, the Doctor slid into view and turned on his sonic screwdriver. The buzz shook the suits of the Power Rangers. Like dominoes, they dropped their weapons, the clatter becoming a part of an echo down the corridors. The rage faded from the leader's eyes. While her team stumbled across the floor, one leaning on the wall just to stay up, the leader straightened herself up, removing her helmet with shaking hands.
Thank you,
she said as her long green hair flowed down her back.
How can we repay you?
It's not over yet. The Doctor gestured for Spider-Man to follow. Nathan, you stay here and make sure the Power Rangers will be alright. Spidey, you and I will need to get to my TARDIS and get some equipment. We have to stop this before even more people are affected. The Doctor bolted down the corridor, Parker catching up with ease. He zigged and zagged down the narrow passageways. A plan began to form in the Doctor's mind. Its blueprint, drawn more with crayon than professional ink, sat ready to use. The Doctor slowed down. Spider-Man stood in front of him, taking a deep breath as the two glared at the door to the yard, while the heavy breathing of Godzilla filled the air.
So, what's up, Doc?
The Doctor sighed. You're a member of staff here, so Godzilla won't attack you, right? Spider-Man nodded. If you keep Godzilla busy, I can rush into my TARDIS, grab what I need, and get back inside.
Ah, yes, the look over there plan. One of the oldest tricks in the book.
I should know, the Doctor beamed. I wrote it on a weekend with Stephen King. Spider-Man paused.
Wait, really?
It was during his later days, before his big crossover with R.L. Stine. They both ended up coming back in time with me, though. It was a nice day.
Their crossover?
The Doctor brought his voice down to a whisper. Spoilers. Spider-Man placed his hand on the handle. For just a second, the jovial superhero disappeared, replaced by a man well-versed with life almost ending. He eased it open. Godzilla stirred, lifting his head up high to stare down at the pair with shining reptilian eyes.
Hey there, champ!
Greeted Spider-Man.
Feeling alright?
Godzilla growled. Its tail surrounded the TARDIS. A dust cloud whipped up into the air around its steps. Its snarl began to glow bright with a hot energy that dripped down onto the pair. They jumped out of the way, Spider-Man shooting a web onto Godzilla to swing up high into the air before landing on its head.
Whoa there! Whoa, I have clearance, okay? Is this about the Secret Santa? I swear, I told Paul that you wouldn't like a tie.
The Doctor narrowly avoided a blast from Godzilla's mouth, the beam scorching the air itself. Ground smoked in its wake. Burn marks streaked the building again and again as Godzilla tried in vain to hit Spider-Man. The Doctor felt the heat as the beams singed his long coat. If Godzilla could speak, he knew exactly what it would be roaring, deafening both of them with its primal cry, which shook the shutters of the building. Exterminate. It's been affected by the Dalek as well, the Doctor warned Spider-Man.
So I shouldn't take it personally then? I feel it's personal. Can you get what you need?
Under Godzilla's roar, the Doctor whipped out his sonic from his pocket. The buzz of its signal pushed back against Godzilla's cry, only winning out as the roar faded with its breath. Godzilla crashed into the ground in front of the TARDIS. A wave of dust rushed towards the Doctor. Spider-Man dashed towards him, shooting a web towards a high tower and picking up the Time Lord seconds before the cloud could reach him. The pair eased down onto the roof, watching the King of the Monsters succumb to exhaustion once more, falling asleep under the heat of the yard, its body curled around the TARDIS.
Have all the guards been going crazy?
Spider-Man asked, cutting through the silence before he could envelop them both. So far, just Jenkins and the Power Ranger have been affected among the staff. The Doctor eyed a ladder off the side of the building. Large gaps in it showed the power of Godzilla's beam, even to a building ready for it. Spider-Man folded his arms.
All of them are defenses for the Dalek. Jenkins is a part of the basic guard. The Power Rangers will call for additional support. Same with Godzilla.
The Doctor hurled himself down the ladder, dropping past the gaps until he came to the ground. All roads lead to Dalek Delta. Spider-Man leapt to the ground, crouching as he landed.
Looks like Delta is getting a visit.
The Doctor thought for a moment. I think we'll need some more help. preferably someone who wasn't a part of the Dalek task force. Spider-Man straightened up.
I think I know just the guy.
Part 3. A chill crept up the leg of the Doctor as they entered the chamber. Nathan caught up with the pair after seeing the Power Rangers safely to quarantine, his brow moist with the sweat of anticipation. Perhaps that was why he shuddered most while they walked through the room with the fog. Spider-Man led the way. He pointed towards a pulsating light atop a cylinder at the end of the room. They all had to sidestep various workbenches left vacant in a hurry by scientists evacuating, all the while being watched by a camera mounted on the cylinder. "State your intent," chirped a cheery voice through the fog.
Wake-up system,
Explained Spider-Man to the Doctor. The Time Lord cleared his throat. "Hello, my name is the Doctor." The machine pinged. "Omega level clearance granted for Project Jellybean." That was easy. "Computer, what is Project Jellybean?" Another ping. Project Jellybean is the housing of the greatest hero 21st century Earth has to offer." Nathan wiped the cylinder with a screech. It revealed a glass container, a figure faintly visible through the steam. The fog oozed out from the container, filling the room with a cold that slithered down the Doctor's spine. "It seems that the opening process has begun." Spider-Man waved some of the fog from the surface of the cylinder, revealing a panel of worn switches. They creaked as he pressed them. A series of numbers rolled on a dial, jittering in place under the vibrations of the chamber.
I'd say he has a few hours until he wakes up,
said Spider-Man. The Doctor scratched his chin. "I don't think we have that long. We're going to have to wake him up sooner."
Is that possible?
Nathan tapped the glass.
He seems quite frozen.
"Not to worry." The Doctor twirled a sonic screwdriver in his hand. "With a quick buzz, I'll be able to give the jump start it needs to get him out." "Parker, does this thing have a timer?" Spider-Man paused before opening a small hatch in the panel.
How long?
"About 5 minutes." The Doctor turned on the sonic, the buzz causing the machine to let out a loud mechanical sigh as its circuits came to life. Nathan held tight to a desk. Around and around the cold fog whirled, creating a strong wind in the chamber, revealing more of the messy desks, loose paper being whipped into the air. The machine began to purr. Spider-Man and the Doctor stepped back as the glass lifted up, one last wave of fog rushing across the room. It died away. In the cylinder lay a man who looked identical to the Doctor. Instead of a long blue coat, a man lay on a blue cape that stood out from his green uniform. At the centre of his chest sat a silver T symbol. He stirred. With a groan, he sat up.
"Gentlemen,"
announced Spider-Man with dramatic flair.
"allow me to introduce the superhero, Tristan."
"Good day," greeted the groggy newcomer. His gaze widened as it landed on the Doctor. He looked at Spider-Man. "Did you clone me?" "The universe is a strange place," the Doctor explained. "I'm not always sure when I get my face from, so it's possible it could also belong to someone else who happens to be a superhero." Tristan stretched. "So, why did you wake me up? I doubt it's for a chat. What's the problem?" The trio shared a glance. Nathan folded his arms and grumbled. He shook his head, wordlessly declining the offer to tell the story once more. The Doctor shrugged. "In fairness, I technically explained the Daleks to Nathan when we first met." Spider-Man stuck out his fist.
Rock, paper, scissors?
A mechanical whirl pulsated inside the Foundation. The lights lining the corridors flickered as they walked down, the Doctor feeling the deep vibrations reverberating down the walls. He took his hands from them, putting them back in his pocket. The cold steel of his sonic reassured him, his constant companion. How many times had the two of them heard the scream of a Dalek? Too many. The Doctor watched Spider-Man on the ceiling, crawling across it to be an unexpected surprise. In a way, the Doctor pitied him. Daleks are a twisted surprise to anyone who first meets them. Superhero Tristan's cape fluttered as they strode to Dalek Delta. The Doctor regarded a face so close to his with an expression of strange stoic power, an amusing sight that provided a light in the dim corridor. Nathan reached for a saber no longer there.
"Do we have a plan?"
The Doctor clapped his hands together jovially. "Well, we go in there, beat the Dalek, and then we'll all go home. I think that is a great plan."
How are we going to beat the Dalek?
The doctor pondered this for a moment before looking up at Spider-Man. I don't suppose Grimlock was actually called, was he? Parker nodded.
He's on his way, though I'm not sure how long it's going to take him to get here.
Can we buy time? Asked Tristan. Nathan shook his head.
Time is not something you can waste with a Dalek.
Do not move! A trio of scientists, white coats littered with grime, stampeded down the hall towards them. Large goggles obscured their faces that glared down the barrels of guns aimed straight at the doctor and his friends. Their names, sewn into the front of their lab coats, were unkempt, fragments undone by anger or time. The doctor hoped for the latter. Tristan stepped in front of the group. Stand down. Wait! The doctor held out his sonic, fingers hovering over a button. A quick flick and a small buzz of his sonic later. The scientist stopped. Please tell me you can speak. Affirmative, declared the leader, name unreadable. Take us to Dalek Delta. Negative, you are to be destroyed.
Except,
Nathan continued for the doctor.
if he flicks that switch, you won't be doing that either way. It would make more sense to take us to Delta, who's more equipped than you three.
The trio shared a wordless conversation. The glint of their visors flickered with the dim lights. They lowered their guns. Follow, ordered the leader. As their backs turned, Spider-Man shot balls of web that splattered against weapons, knocking them out of their hands and pinning their arms to the walls. Nathan gestured for Tristan to follow his lead, holding the scientists in place as Spider-Man webbed them up. The leader of the scientists glared at the doctor, a silent anger only humans could pull off. They struggled against the webbing. Even their grunts and groans became seeped in a Dalek-like tone. The doctor mouthed his apologies to them. Silence loomed around the group, washing over the corridor once the leader slumped their head onto the wall. Shall we finally meet Dalek Delta then? The doctor walked backwards. He kept the scientists in sight as Nathan disabled the weapons.
Are you not going to knock them out?
Delta may be expecting that, waiting for even a hint of a signal. If it does have more scientists tucked away, better deal with them carefully.
Probably the only thing careful about this whole thing.
They eased open Delta's door, the soft pulsating sound of the equipment inside disguising the creak. In the centre of the room, with cables connecting it to the crooked and jarring machinery, stood Dalek Delta, casing open to reveal his squid-like form. The lights above it shone too dim to be of any true use. Shattered glass twinkled on the floor, scattered around the tables that held what remains of the research on Delta. The doctor gestured for the superhero Tristan to remain round the corner. He nodded. As they entered the room, the eye stalk of Dalek came to life with a sputter of sparks. First it looked to the doctor and Nathan striding into the room with a loud enough presence to keep the attention on them. Then Delta chuckled. It was quiet at first, barely heard under the weight of the doctor's footsteps or the machinery's mechanisms, but over time, as they grew closer, the Dalek burst into laughter. Its eye stalk turned to a corner of the room. More scientists sat patiently in front of a table lined with armour, their heads bowed in despair.
What have you done?
Welcome, Doctor, to a new Dalek age, Delta cooed. The Doctor eyed the creature with a twisted sense of curiosity. Delta's unmistakably Dalek voice, an eternal mechanical scream, ill-suited the morbid delight of which the creature spoke with. So I can skip the introductions then. Excellent. The doctor clapped his hands together. Why don't we skip to the part where I have foiled you and you disappear for a few decades of my life till we do this all again? Cute, Doctor. A cascade of lights lit up the darkness behind Delta. The low hum of lights coursed around the room. Daleks, vessels scrambled together by metal from all over the universe, floated into view. One patchwork creation fired off into the air. A bolt of energy illuminated the rest of the room for the briefest of moments. Cylinders of bubbling liquids lined the back of the room, scratched glass betraying the Daleks being grown inside. I knew you would soon come, Doctor. The Foundation were all aflutter about it. The Doctor crossed his arms. You know, you're much more animated than Dalek should be. I am a true Dalek, Delta snapped. Do not question me.
Now that's a Dalek,
scoffed Nathan. Where did you find him? Asked the doctor. I found them, pointed out Delta. The Empire left me drifting. Pity them, Doctor, for the Emperor is misguided by the drones around him. My Daleks are superior. They share my vision. Why did they leave you drifting? The Doctor's arms eased to his sides and carefully stepped forward. Smoke floated up from the scorch marks on the floor. The patchwork Daleks watched the Doctor closely. Occasionally, one eye glanced at Delta, as if waiting for something. There must be a reason. Nathan sneered.
Maybe we should ask a true Dalek why.
I am a true Dalek. My creation was a bolt of lightning, a miracle for the Dalek race. The Foundation attacked the lab where I was created. Even with malfunctioning equipment, I was born.
Your friends are rather quiet,
chided Nathan. The Doctor gestured to the patchwork Daleks. Nathan has a point. Don't you want to toss your hat into the ring? Do you not have any? I do have a whole bunch in the TARDIS if you need a loan. Cease your prattling, Delta roared. My creations were born from my efforts in this lab. They are prototypes. So what were the staff? The Doctor paused. He felt the weight of the Dalek's glare upon him. The Doctor pranced around the room as he spoke, keeping every eye stalk on him. The light soared over the dread deep in the Time Lord's heart. Come now, Delta, don't be shy. You have infected the people who were assigned to you. They infected themselves, Delta cackled. Humans are fascinating creatures, willing to go so far in the name of research. Of course, I did tell them of my superior nature. Delta tried in vain to stifle a low laugh. It is imperfect, but they have some promise for future experiments. Its eye stalk moved to the scientist before his lights flared with anger. Where are they? A whistle from the doorway caught Delta's attention. Its patchwork Dalek fired off into the superhero Tristan's chest. Nothing. He continued to whistle. Balls of web splattered onto the Dalek's weapon. A burning smell drifted to the Doctor, still striding across the room to Delta. I have friends too, you know. Yours looked a bit lonely, so my buddy Tristan thought he'd take them out for some ice cream. Exterminate! Delta's casing snapped shut, the cables flinging off towards them. Nathan and the Doctor jumped over the coils, keeping their gazes square on Delta even as the patchwork Dalek swooped down. The Doctor ducked, narrowly avoiding one charging for him. He whipped out the sonic, quickly tracking the Dalek's shambling movements. Another flew by him, tossed aside by Spider-Man's powerful string of webbing into the far wall before shattering into pieces, the light fading from the eye stalk. The body of another Dalek exploded with a thunderous punch. Superhero Tristan floated beside the Doctor, hands still tight in a fist, glaring at Delta with eyes framed by a crimson energy. It's over, Delta. You can't win. Delta sneered. Do you think these are my only creations? Crude as they are, it makes them far easier to recreate. Spider-Man bounced off a Dalek, sending it spiralling to the ground for Tristan to punch into oblivion. The three stood in a line. Sparks flew from what remained of the drones, but the whirring of more nearby still remained, filling the atmosphere.
Can Daleks count?
Parker asked as the dust cleared. Not by the looks of it, the Doctor beamed in response. A mechanical roar dominated the room, deeper than Godzilla's but just as loud. While the ringing faded from their ears, the Doctor led Spider-Man and superhero Tristan out of the lab in time for the entire back wall to come crashing down. Nathan rode on the back of a large metal T-Rex. It crushed the rubble beneath its feet, spewing fire at any Dalek foolish enough to fly into range. Nathan leapt down from the T-Rex. He rolled as he landed, launching straight up to blast the Dalek, priming his own shot for him. In a swift mechanical flurry of sounds, the T-Rex transformed into a hulking robot. Grimlock is here, he declared. You don't seem so tough. What is the meaning of this? Delta bellowed. The broken metal plating of its casing screeched with its metallic voice. A patchwork Dalek crashed beside Delta. The remains of the mutant spluttered against the glowing dome. Nathan leapt off of Grimlock's back, landing right in front of Delta with a hiss of his lightsaber.
Did you miss me?
It's over, Delta, announced the Doctor. With the wall of the lab wide open, Godzilla stepped into view. Even from that distance, the hot breath rolled into the room like a moist fog. Now then, why don't we go find somewhere you won't harm anyone? At first, Delta chuckled. Sparks of sound shot out the broken casing as Grimlock approached behind. The glow of Nathan's lightsaber fizzled in comparison to the energy quickly wrapping around the Dalek. Delta's chuckle rose into a demented laughter. It swarmed around the room, echoing in the broken shells of his patchwork Daleks as Delta grew brighter and brighter.
Get back!
Shouted Nathan, using the lightsaber as a shield. With a flash of light, the laughter stopped. All sound became consumed in light except a high, sharp ringing. By the time the Doctor could see again, there was no sign of Delta. The ringing faded away under the awesome roar of Godzilla.
Doctor,
Nathan groaned, trying to straighten himself up.
what was that?
The Doctor sighed. Emergency temporal shift. Must be becoming standard these days.
Who made that thing?
Spider-Man crouched in the spot Delta's casing once stood.
He left behind some traces. I could use the Foundation's equipment to track it.
Rubble crashed down inches away from Grimlock, who scoffed at the challenge.
Well, once we get everything fixed, that is.
The Doctor clapped his hands together. Well, that means I will be here a while. How about a cup of tea? I hear it hits the spot after a Dalek attack. Superhero Tristan floated to the side of the Time Lord. Where did you hear that from? Me, several incarnations ago. I was a wise young lady. Grimlock stomped over to them. Pardon? It's a long story, my new metal friend. The Doctor began to stroll out of the room, still feeling the heat of battle bite at the back of his neck. I've had many faces and many stories to go with them. Grimlock folded his arms. The Autobot glared at the Doctor, unamused by the Time Lord's comments. The Doctor stopped. He twirled in his tracks and stared up at the Transformer. You could say I'm more than meets the eye. Nathan grumbled at the joke.
How about I tell the next story?
The end. Night, Tristan. Love you.